Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NLC Division 2. It is match day 15 of Division 2. Man, we're just adapting, Jamada. We're just taking as it goes. It is match day 15 of Division 2. We're gonna have some lovely games. We're still 2 weeks away from playoffs time, so a lot of teams can still make it. Other teams can still bounce away from that position from the top six. And we have relegations and also promotions on this split as I'm going to get zoomed in, zoomed out, relocated on this webcam. And it's way too hot today, but I hope you guys are comfortable back at home with some sort of AC to watch this amazing show.
Me too, man. Me too. It is very warm today.
How's the water on your feet?
It's great. You know what? I definitely can't show it on
No,
air
you can't.
because
No, you can't.
I'm sure that'll be some kind of TOS thing.
Yeah,
But what I'll do is I'll tweet it, and you guys can get a
I
free
want to
feet
see
pick.
that.
Free feet pick, I guess.
Feet
But yeah,
pictures of Jamal.
it's it should be a pretty good day. It's hot, and no pun intended. I think the matchups should match the weather today.
Yeah,
I think a lot of the games
sure.
really
Actually,
hold
this is
a
kind of blurry
whole.
because of the hot, man.
Thinking
Yes.
about it, I'm like,
It
you know
was
what?
blurry. It
Yeah,
is.
it is even my camera's looking a bit blurry. But anyway, matchups on our screen. I started talking about them. Read, straight to the punch. Yeah, from basically top to bottom, right? Especially the first three games in particular, I think hold a whole bunch of sway over who's making it into playoffs. Because I think as things stand, no one is technically mathematically locked in. I think a win today, thank you for the standings, would for natives would give them guaranteed playoffs. But effectively, everything is still up in the air, right?
I think Natives
Munster
is
and
already locked in, by the way.
it might be because of head-to-heads with other teams.
But still, yeah,
The
all other five teams. You're correct.
yeah,
Seven.
all other five teams basically, yeah, it's looking like any of them could really drop out. I think Lightside have really had a rough time of it. Do I think they're going to lose the remaining of their remaining games? Probably not. They have Lucent and London United this week alone, so hopefully for themselves they should be able to pick those ones up. But I look kind of down towards the bottom side of it, and I say, especially because our first game of the day is Munster taking on Guarp. If Unique, Rising Dawn, Domino, any of those teams lose their games today, they have to look over their shoulder at whoever takes up that win in our first match of the day. Because I think realistically, especially if it ends up being Guap could just end up going on a tear and just make a late run for promotion, not for promotion, for playoffs. Because you have to recall, their final two games are against the two teams battling it out. London United are confirmed relegations. Lucent can still mathematically make it, but it's going to be a very tough run. They have a lot of work to do. So if Guap, end up winning today, it's very reasonable that they make it to playoffs, right? Because that one win against Munster will bring them up to 7 wins. If they win both their games next week, which given how they're playing is likely, that brings them up to 9. If you don't get into playoffs on 9 wins, something really has to go wrong in the rest of the standings. And to be fair, they are set up currently in a manner which it wouldn't surprise me if if teams have 9 wins, they end up doing tiebreaks.
That is a side I've never thought I would see. But yeah, Guarp Gaming, one step away, taking Munster Rugby out, a team that was so strong in the previous splits, taking them out of playoffs for the team that just joined Division 2. That would be interesting to say the least. This is just how we're going to open. Then Variety is going to take on Unique, Rising Dawn versus Natives. Rising Dawn needs this one. Natives also need that to lock in at least the top two. That's what they're looking for. They're also looking for the Division 1. We talked about this multiple times. And we had some back-to-back conversations between Division 2 and Division 1 on interviews. Since I'm the host of one and I'm the caster of the other one, I like to keep the spicy. And Singularity are looking comfortable right now where they are. And they're like, okay, our team is looking good. So I want to talk with natives today and understand their look into Singularity right now. Then Domino on London, and then Lightside versus Listen. Every single game today is going to be really spicy due to the fact that, just as you said, any team can still make playoffs regardless of those twos at the bottom. And we need to start locking in some things. We need to start locking in teams. I don't want to do the foldy sheet. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't comprehend that. We have a foldy one for the NLC Division 1. But I don't understand it. I don't.
Too much maths. It is too much maths. When you get to a situation where folder sheets have to come out, and I feel like, unfortunately, we're gonna have that here in Division 2. I think that I
Oh
think
no.
I think the reality of the situation is we have too many teams too close in the standings for there to not be a 40 sheet. So it's going to show up. But I think moving away from sort of
Mm.
standings overall, though, I think it's definitely going to be an overlooming topic of this first matchup in particular, Guarp and Munster. Two very different stories coming into their matchup today. I think for Munster, definitely one with a little more frustration in comparison to Guarp, if you were to ask me,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of the roster swaps, a lot of initial success once they actually swapped in their current iteration of the roster, of course, minus Fastleg, but then things just kept on getting worse and worse week by week. And they did finally pick up a win last week against Rate, but even then, I think, maybe you could argue how Ray approached the game, etc. Not saying it wasn't a particularly strong game for Munster either, but I think there's a lot of pros and cons to take away from
Mm-hmm.
a lot of learnings, or I was probably the way to phrase it, from both teams. So coming into Guap with a win is going to feel great, but the fact that Guap have just taken down Natives and a Rate back to back, as well as Lightside actually, so they've basically just taken the scalps of all of the top three teams walking into this matchup is definitely going to feel a little bit scary from the Munster side of things.
They're the most unpredictable team on the roster that we have. And one thing that I've noticed when I was casting the best of five between them and other teams for the relegations and promotion from Division 3 to Division 1 was that this team on the best of five is even scarier than on the best of one. If these guys are allowed to make playoffs, I don't know, man. The way they pick, the way they play, it's unpredictable, and you can't understand what is going on in a match. And all of a sudden, your mental go boom, and Guarp goes along. So maybe we can get some surprises if they make playoffs. Obviously, now on the Muscle Rugby side, I want to ask you as an analyst and as an expert that casts a lot of weird. How do you
Really,
even say it? You are on the NLC. You are on the NLC Division 1. You are on LPL. You keep racking those
I'm
places, and
globetrotting. I'm
Hmm?
globetrotting right now. Is what you're trying to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
fair
I
enough.
just want to know on this matchup, what should we focus on in terms of attention? Early game, mid game, late game. Which team is going to focus more towards the bots? Will we have some split push? How do we look into this matchup, Jamada?
I mean, I think for me, for Munster,
Mm.
maybe I'm a little bit it's kind of like jungle bias in a way. I feel definitely, but I
Mhm.
really do feel like Shakal, um, in particular, is kind of where I look at for Munster to really get things going. In my opinion, I feel like he's one of the more talented junglers that we actually have individually in the league, which I know might sound strange given Munster's positioning, but I remember watching this guy years ago, dumpstering relatively strong NLC Div 1 junglers all the way back in, I believe it was either 2021 spring or the NLC full open all the way back in 2020. And we definitely started to see sort of signs of that when he came into the roster. He looked very strong individually. And things have kind of teared off, not just for him, but the team. Like we've spoken with multiple members of Munster. A lot of things definitely seem to be going wrong in terms of maybe perhaps the communication and such. But we'll see whether or not he can get the ball rolling for the rest of the team. So I think if he gets a pretty good matchup for himself, he can really look to snowball that into the lanes that he has. We've seen pretty strong performances from Harbo in particular. Skewer as well, if he gets a really
Mhm.
strong 1v1 in isolation, I feel kind of really take the ball and run with it. So we just kind of, to me, I'm looking towards the top side. I think definitely you can get a very strong game out of Ruvelius if you give him a hyper carry, but if you give him that hyper carry, you have to put the resources into it.
I like this Yumi ban. We've seen Yumi popping up more often than we should. Kalissa is also removed because Kalissa will be that early game champion, and we know it's more towards the. As I'm looking, 10 line Tom, okay, and Fred Spaghetti, as usually, you get the Jin on the Garp, and that's going to be the first pick yet again. This is the only team that picks Jin, and they pick it as a first pick. I don't know. This is Garp.
It kind of is Guap, isn't it? Like just Jin priority. That's just how they run. We'll see what ends up being paired with it. But we spoke about Ruvelius getting a hyper carry. Guap,
Yeah.
Munster maybe putting resources into that basket. It could be the case. They already see the AD carry matchup. What we've been seeing a lot pop up in LPL, LCK, especially LEC. I think they're just now getting onto 12-12B this week, perhaps. Is the Aphelios priority with the Renata in particular. Both Renata, very strong. We know that on this patch already, but Aphelios also got buffed in his per level attack speed, and I think it was lethality. So he's really risen up its priority, but we're not going to see that. What we are going to see is Corki Jinx in the same rotation. So for Munster, it's a whole bunch of the sitting back, scaling, a lot of, guaranteed damage will eventually be in your composition. It's just about ensuring that you can get to that point in the game without having fallen too far behind, and you can definitely use, the support role, jungle, top lane roles to build a bridge to that point in the game. But from Guarp's perspective now, see the Corki pick up. Been seeing a lot more priority in Silas recently. Just a very strong champion. I think the other meta champions at the moment kind of just have poor matchups into him or have very strong ultimates that he can really abuse and utilize. And that's why I see him get picked up so frequently and very early on in a lot of drafts, and specifically into Corki. It can provide a lot of setup for Galen to try and play around.
That's the thing, when you can get that ultimate from Corki, you keep talking about that, and on the late game, things will shift in towards Silas if he gets that little poke alongside the Jhin, and that is going to be a high range composition, which I think they're going to favor that as well. Now with the Karma as a support, we believe, with the Jhin on the bot side. So they already know what they're going to fare against on the bot side. Renata available, and both teams are going to disregard that one. They're going straight up into the Nautilus. So no junglers so far, and this is so against the meta that we've seen recently.
Yeah, no, junglers almost for what feels like an eternity now typically just get first picked, first rotation very frequently. So I think from Munster's side of things, banning away Udyr from Galen, probably a very smart call. I'm not sure what else they'd want to take away. Maybe his Lee Sin, but Shkal also plays that. Viego still up and available as well. Probably a pretty high value ban here just in terms of the jungle pool. Trundle, Volibear, loads of the power picks up. I think we're probably going to end up seeing a situation where we start to default to things like maybe even Xin Zhao if we end up getting 4 jungle bans.
So if one side bans Udyr, the Volibear is still available. The Wukong, even though it was nerfed, people are still looking into that one because of the massive power you bring into a middle of a team fight. It's going to be the GP on the top side, so it seems like they're looking for something specific for Viggo Mobson if they're going to take that way. They are really afraid of Skewer. They take away the Camille, they take away the GP. The Diana is for that combo we've seen recently pop off a little bit more often, the Yasuo Diana. We started from the Dusty side on Division 1. It is really scary, and they got them the win on to the top. So looking into these sort of bans, what pops into your mind on the top side for Viggo Mobson and Skewer?
I mean, I think for me, it's still looking like comfort. I think the fact that Ornn gets banned away is more of a response to the Gangplank ban. I think Viggo Mobson was probably looking towards that as a takeaway if Munster didn't take it themselves, and they're just trying to avoid, 3 hyper scaling lanes at the same time. So I think Guarp banning away the Gangplank kind of just forces Munster to do that. Maybe Skewer just didn't really feel comfortable giving him over Ornn for free. But we spoke about the Volibear. We'll see if we get Galen on the Trundle as a response, and then we'll move up to Viggo Mobson and what exactly will he be feeling comfortable to blind. We'll have to see, because I think, hovering the Malphite right now, Guarp lacking true hard engage at the moment. Malphite definitely can provide that. It's not something we see too often, especially not blind, and if it does come in blind, I'll be pretty surprised because Sejuani is up, and that's definitely been the more sort of premier top laner in terms of engage. If you don't pick up the Ornn, typically you tend to see a backup plan of Sejuani come into fruition. And now what I would really love to see from Galen is, a midi champion to try and basically just get the permafrost stacks going very, very consistently. Spoke about the Xin Zhao Trundle as well. Again, the option's really kind of up to him. I would say that the Xin Zhao probably has a little more value in terms of blocking a lot of the range damage in some of the team fights, but Trundle as well could also give a lot of disruption with the pillar. Instead, Galen moves over to the Kha'Zix. So definitely a very different look. We'll kind of talk about this pick as we go into the game, because I think there's so many different versions of Kha'Zix in terms of his build paths, runes, play styles, that will be a little bit too hard to try and break it down inside of the draft itself. But over to Skewer, pretty free matchup in the top side for Sejuani. And I mean, going through the options, we saw this in the Weibo IG series where Shai picked up that Fiora. I think it was into Sejuani. It looked pretty unlosable, to be honest, but Skewer will just default back to his Aatrox. And we've seen Skewer on the Aatrox before. Needs very little introduction. Drain tanks on the Sejuani. It's very hard for Sejuani to efficiently trade back, especially once you sort of hit that level 6 mark onwards and the World Ender becomes available. The healing just goes through the roof, and not even a Ignite can really stop it.
Then you have to think about that one. How do you deal with the Aatrox providing that sort of defensive line or AoE complications in the middle of a team fight? Late game, Kha'Zix, Jhin, or even Salas going into the middle, not Jin, Sejuani, those three targets going into the middle of a fight is going to be really complicated. And if you don't deal with the Aatrox, he's going to pop off in a fight. And if you deal with him, you allow Corki and Jinx. So you were talking about triple lanes with advantages towards the late game. Is this Aatrox one of them as well, if they're capable of getting him into those two, at least 3 item spikes?
I mean, I feel like Aatrox scales. What's the correct word here to use?
Okay,
he can have a very steep scaling curve depending on the enemy composition. I think that Aatrox very easily could fall off, for example, if you flipped the team comps here, or you flipped the top lane matchups here, and you had Aatrox on Guarp's side, then having to deal with the range of like Corki plus Jinx could definitely get pretty irritating for him, and especially when you start to look at the amount of CC that a Sejuani and Lawless would provide. So his, overall usefulness would definitely drop off. But if talking about him dealing with, a Silas jumping on his face with a Sejuani who's not necessarily going to be dealing too much damage, just giving more assistance in terms of locking him down, then yeah, things can get a little bit easier. So I think in a game like this, he should be okay, like post 2 items. Definitely, spikes really hard at that first item where you pick up the Gore Drinker, and then trying to dive in becomes very, very difficult. But beyond that, I think it would be definitely it would be a very strong game plan for Munster to try and rely on Skewer in the early game. Give him a lead that kind of creates a pressure sink, and then you can start facilitating Corki and the Jinx to get to that point, or use him as a sort of a what's the word? What do you jump off of when you go into a pool?
Well, I had that same question a week ago.
It's not a trampoline. No.
No,
it's like, on the side of the pool. You jump on it, bounce it. Diving board? Is it called a diving board? I'm English, by the way. I should probably know this.
You should. You're the one.
Yeah, I'm
diving board. I think it's a diving board.
Diving board.
Hey, you're the native
It's a
one.
diving board. Yes, it's a pool diving board. Use Skewer as kind of a diving board here to sort of, or a trampoline is probably much easier to digest.
Springboard or diving board, by the way.
Spring platforms, springboard, to effectively, especially probably get that first herald so you can go put it in Harbour's lane, in Revelius's lane, and start to snowball a objective and gold lead there. I think for Guarp though on the opposite side, definitely want to get Galen to level 6 so he can have a little more impact in the lanes. I think especially when the setup is not, terrible, but relatively limited and a little bit situational, as in the bottom side trading already unfolds.
Hey, Jamada, so I know you just talked about a lot of things, but I want you to talk about an additional one, because this to me is kind of a head scratcher. We have an engage on the bot side. It's going to be Fred Spaghetti with the Ignite burning in. You have to be careful about that one. One extra auto attack is going to give the first blood, and now it's on to Revenge from 10 line. I don't think you're going to get it. Fast Life would probably be winning that one. Fleet footwork on Revelius on the Jinx.
Yeah, definitely very interesting compared to, of course, the very standard lethal tempo. Maybe just a little bit afraid of, the poke damage that can come out between a Jhin and a Karma, but it's really going to limit your ability to hit some of those targets that you might want to in the backline later on in the game. Definitely a odd one as a pause comes in. Looks like Shakal might be having some connectivity issues, so...
But it's fine. Don't worry, guys. So on the bot side, you have Jhin with the Karma. This is going to be a heavy, impactful poke. And then eventually, when you do get the damage, you can go in for the kill. But it seems like they wanted to fight it at level 2, while Revelius and Fast Lagged were already ready for the hook. And that Karma is not as tanky as you think, especially if you start with that Spell Thief's Edge. It's not going to provide you the tankiness that you need to deal with those engaged from the Nautilus. So sometimes you look for the goal, but you lose your life in the process. That's exactly what happened, giving that sort of lead to the Jinx. And even though she doesn't have the lethal tempo, as we were going to talk about, it's still a first blood. And she goes back. She has a little bit of gold. She can buy what? Maybe boots or even another longsword to try and get the pressure going on. They lost all of the summoned spells. On one side, you still have the flash from 10 line Tom and the ignite from Fred Spaghetti.
Yeah, pretty okay, I think, from both sides. Like, it's going to feel bad giving over that first blood, but I think the fact that 10-line Tom doesn't end up losing any of the wave is also going to feel just as good. And because Revelius has to base immediately after picking out that first blood, the actual item advantage that he's going to come back into lane with is going to be fairly minuscule. You know, it's going to be, what, maybe a longsword, maybe boots one. So he's not going to feel it too much, but of course, any of those kind of stats can always make a difference in an all-in. So still an advantage will go over to Munster side.
It's still not a lot to get that advantage towards Munster Rugby Gaming. They certainly need it, as they're looking for the chances to get onto playoffs as we get back onto the Summoner's Rift to continue with this first game of match day 15 of NLC Division 2. We're reaching the end of the road, and all teams are still looking to get into playoffs. Only 2 teams are away from those due to the fact that they just can't get it working for them in terms of math. Aside from that, everybody can still make it. Skewered on the top side is going to have an easy lane versus Sejuani. It's up to Viggo Mobson to pilot that in a more comfortable and easy way, just to farm away. You have the W. You can certainly do it. Fighting, it's not an option for the Sejuani unless someone steps into the top side. And that's why I'm even looking into it. Like, why even bring the Ignite if you don't have any sort of kill pressure? Let's see if Viggo Mobson is going to prove us wrong, as Timeline Time is still available with the flash, but he doesn't want to use it right now. But I'm afraid of Shakal. And you told us about Shakal, the jungler. And then you talked about Gaelim with the Kazakhs. What are the big differences and what can we see from this Kazakhs?
Well, Kazakhs has had quite a few different build paths over the last couple of months, as Fastleg, I think, made it into that bush without being seen. So this could be a pretty interesting play, but they stepped too far back and they don't really want to play it out. But yes, Kazakhs, typically, at the moment, what we actually see is Conqueror, as Gaelim has, and then Gore Drinker with Chempunk Chainsaw, actually, as Fred Spaghetti can get hooked. CC'd could be in danger.
No flash available. They're going to try and turn it on Rebellious. They get the kill towards the AD carry. It's AD carry for AD carry. But yet again, 10-line Tom is going to survive this one. Able to farm this one through, as on the top side, we talked about this. If you have someone visiting, that Ignite is going to pay off their steps. And at this time, Guarp are going to tie up the score.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? Kazakhs can get on top of you quite easily. And will set up for those permafrost stacks for Sejuani, and Skewer must have just overstepped. As we'll have a replay. I believe it's going to be from the top side first, as opposed to the bottom side. We'll get a look at that after, I'm sure. But Skewer just kind of gets caught out. The wave is bounced back into him. Should definitely be playing a little more defensively in the middle of the wave. Could have maybe played out this 2v2, but the Ignite cuts down so much of the healing. He can't really trade back. Really good play from him. And then on the bottom side, saw how it started off. Fastleg finds that dredge line, and just because the focus is on the Karma, not on the Jhin, Jin's able to trade back on those kills. They end up 1-for-1ing. I think Ruvelius missed a little bit of the minion wave, though. So definitely I would call that an advantage. Guarp, Jhin getting a little bit ahead, 1-to-1 in the CS department, but nothing major is growing. But the gold lead, of course, still in Ruvelius' favor because he picked up that kill from earlier.
5 minutes in, and there you go, the difference in terms of gold. Not a big difference so far, but Gaelim now with a little bit of a lead on Kazakhs, which is going to power rocket that Kazakhs with the Conqueror. I would like to see what Kazakhs is building up as well, as it seems like Munster Rugby are going to try and start this. Dragon is going to try and steal it away. Doesn't get it. Oh, hook me there. Where are you going, little bug? He's forced to flash away after that attempt. That was an attempt, but there was no dragon. It seems like Nugget is still looking for something. From the depths, it comes in the anchor, and Rebellious with no flashes going to go into the bottom's depth. It's going to be the third one for Guarp, so they get the dragon, but they pay an ultimate price because Jinx has went to the base 3 times in a row.
Yeah, really not too much Ruvelius can do about that one. Depth charge from the stolen Silas Ultimate. Very easy setup. Doesn't even need to be abducted with the second part of the E. Is in the top side. Skewer could be in danger. Has the World Ender this time. Does he have Darken sweet spots to try and turn this one around? He does now.
There is going to be an additional kill, but it doesn't matter. Skewer with the World Ender. And I hope Ender as well as Gaelim is going to be smashed on the floor. That is a bug splat.
Yeah, it is. And this is why you need that Ignite to try and cut down that healing, even through World Ender. But this time around, it was just barely off cooldown. Gaelim and Viggo Mobson, they think they have the setup for it. Skewer turns it around in their face. The cooldowns come back up. And he's got enough damage to make that 1v2 work. Really well played. Guarp, just a little bit, over eager to get that play down. A little bit too unawares of how easy it could have been for Skewer to turn it. And now Munster, even though, yes, they did lose Revelius, he did die. He's died a couple of times. Still doing pretty okay in this bottom side, as is the enemy AD carry, to be fair. But Skua could have been put fairly far behind. Now he's definitely, I'll probably argue ahead. Massive mini wave coming into him.
He is, and trying to collapse this one on the turret, and Shakal is dead. Shakal a little bit, not AFK, but he's doing with other objectives. He's looking towards the map. He's looking for the dragons, setups, try to burn a few summoner spells. He's looking into the future and trying to provide better ganks through the rest of these 5 minutes that are yet to come. And talking about someone that's looking for those summoner spells, it seems like Fast Leg is going for the mid line. Try and bite something in. Nugget still with the flash available, but it's horrible with only 3 rockets. So if they really want to force something on the mid lane, I don't think those 2 will be enough. Ignite is not even available. And if we're talking about sustain, well, Silas has a little bit of that. And talking about sustain, everybody has a lot of sustain in this game. Everybody needs healing reduction.
Yeah, I think healing reduction is definitely going to come in at some point. A fair amount of efficiency, to say the least. Both sides, like you say. So much healing, especially from the Aatrox, Silas as well. 2 main ones. But spoke about those neutrals. Shakal, he is now on the top side of the map. It seems like Guarp wanted to contest it, but with both supports on either side in the area, I think it's going to turn into a skirmish. However, Munster have their AD carry moving up first. They're going to have the numbers advantage in the extended play. But are they just going to flip the Herald? It's like the answer is no.
It's a giveaway, Jamada. They're going to give this one away unless Vigam Upset wants to go there, but that's way too dangerous. Now, where Shakal is going to use this one. TP instantly used from Harbo into the bot side to try and stop this push from 10 line. And there you go. 10 line doesn't go towards the fight, and it doesn't get any sort of plating. So I think this is a big, not a big lead, but at least a small victory in favor of Munster Rugby Gaming. If you look into the gold, there's the only difference on the top side. Aside from that, it's pretty much even aside from the jungle, even though Shakal just got the Herald. So this is the big lead that Galem is putting up right now, as it seems like they want to visit the bot side. That would be a 3-man squad to try and dive on Harbu. The flash is available, no TP, he just used it, so that would be an exposed turret. And I think Shakal is aware of something.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be up to this as Galem is just going to jump on Harbo. Chunk him out a little bit, but should still be okay. And you can see on the minimap, the rest of the Munster are rotating down to try and cover this. We'll match the numbers. Alem, I think he's trying to get a hold of this blue buff, but as you can see, Fast Leg and both Shakal could wrap around and pick it up, and Shakal ends up winning up on that smite. So Galem is just going to be forced to go back to his own jungle. And I think talking about where the Herald's going to end up being used, I think wherever Revelius is the likely answer. I think for now, Harbo farming up really well. 97 CS. Actually going towards a shield bow.
It seems like it.
That's a really, really odd item.
So not only the fleet, but also the shield. Oh no! How do I was looking into other thing. Yeah, how do we go into the shield bow? We've seen Corky's giving priority to that because they know they have to fight versus melee. This is a big debate, but those rockets are not going to be as powerful as they could, as Revelius is not as safe as he would like to be. But putting himself in the middle of the minions, flashes away, it's not enough. The Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't deal that much damage while you're melee form, and not a Graves. And meanwhile, they're still going for that dragon. So this could be the second one. Package has been delivered, and now they just need to disengage. The previous time they lost someone, it seems like they're going to do it yet again, as Revelius is going to be the first one killed and the only one on this side. As Fast Leg is trying to run away, Nugget is approaching on Skewer, going to knock him up, but the World Ender is available if he wants to pop it, or even the Flash. He's not going to use it for some reason whatsoever, and in the end, again, they do the objective, they lose someone in the trade, but I still believe it's favorable for them.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they'll be alright. But mid lane, Harbo kind of just gets to stay in the mid lane, farm up. Guess that'll be okay for him as well. Another plate get picked up too. I think when you take a look at where the gold is probably sitting at the moment, for Munster, they're okay. The only real problem is that definitely Revelius starting to fall behind a little bit 1-to-1 with Tanline Tom, and this could definitely be a bit problematic. But I think with the fact that Jin, he's not really that traditional hard hyper carrier. Okay, camera pan down. Tanline Tom, threats to get in danger.
That's the flash being burned. The nice re-engage in the Super Mega Death Rocket yet again out of cooldown. But they get the shit down you were talking about on the Jin. And it was for who? Did you see it was Revelius?
It was Revelius, yeah, picked up with that rocket. That's 300 extra gold. So now, you know, I just said, started to fall behind a little bit, 1-1 with Tadline Tom. I guess now he's not. As we'll get a look at the replay here. And Shakal actually gets the angle here from the Hex Gates, which is why I think it probably Guarps up his off guard very briefly. Play comes in, first stun on Too Afraid to Forget. That one gets flashed away from Tadline Tom. Also ends up having to blow his flash. And then I think a little bit of miscommunication here, very briefly. Fast leg, maybe not giving his team you know, super heads up advance that he's going to go flash for that play, but still, the response is very, very quick from Revelius. Gets that Orma in and is able to pick up that shutdown, and now he's still a little bit down on Timeline Tom in terms of items, but once you be mythic to mythic, as long as they keep parry with the actual, you know, item completions, it's going to be a-okay.
There's still no previous wounds for Viggo Mobson on the top side. That is something that you need to deal with that skewer and also with the Guard Drinker. Some more sustain coming in, and slowly but steadily, it's going to chip on those plates to make that matchup even better for him. Even though you want to engage, there's not much you can do on this matchup, and you just have to accept that things are not going your way. But there you go, Shield Bow on the mid lane. So on the auto attacks, it's going to be interesting, I guess, but the poke is going to be a little bit lost.
Yeah. Not really a fan. I'll just plainly say, I think when you talk about, how Corki wants to play, I think Revelius is dead. To your right. Almost makes it a 1-for-1, to be fair. You know, Corki, like you said, a lot of damage these days comes from the range, comes from the poke. This build, it's more geared to, you know, right-clicking a lot more. And it's just not really, you know, auto-attacking. It's not really what you see from Corki these days. Like, yes, he can auto-attack. Yes, the build, you know, doesn't lack AD, but definitely more built and front-loaded to give the rockets and that phosphorus bomb a lot more effect. Now in the top side, dives coming through.
There's no ultimate for the volley bear, but they don't even need it. The damage is there more than they could tank it away. And there you go, another kill, another lead, another front line being buffed for Munster Rugby Gaming. So this will probably allow the Corki to deal those auto attacks, because you can't afford to deal with Corki right now. You have to look into Aatrox. You have to kill the Jinx as well. Even Volibear is becoming a menace. It's going to be interesting. But looking into this build, specific build, by the way, Jamada, I believe you have to go for the SS River, though. If you want to use auto attacks, you need the Sheen proc.
Yeah.
It's a tough build, I know, but we have to talk about it.
This is why we've seen the deviation away from the shield bow. You know, I think when we had it in meta last year, I think it was kind of like, it was still shield bow back then, and then that's when we started to see the sort of transition to the build that we know now. And yeah, I'm not too sold. I mean, you know, the front line, relatively short range. Yes, you can kind of, you know, peel backwards and such and be okay with that. But Guarp have such limited engage options, right? They only really kind of get to work off of, you know, occasionally having depth charge stolen away from fast leg, and then the Sejuani ultimate. Yes, you know, those are two very potent and powerful engage tools, don't get me wrong. But as Harbo, you should never be in range to get hit by those spells. So yeah, I'm not too sure. As you can see, as we're just speaking about Nugget, taking away the most powerful armor he probably can, just to give more setup to himself and the rest of the team. Munster, they're not in the river first, and they can definitely get poked down a touch as they walk in, but Guarp have actually given up the river entirely. They didn't defend the entrance, they all backed into the choke, and now it's Munster who are in the river and can kind of try and force them away, but they are at risk of getting pincered.
Harbo is going to get knocked up. The damage is followed up. Curtain Call is not enough, but one target is already dead. It's going to be fast lagged, and this could be the first dragon in favor of Guarp if they can get this team fight working. Here's the package. Harbo goes into the middle of the fight. He dies in the process, but allows the team to get some ship damage, but I don't think it's quite enough. Meanwhile, Skewer with the world end, and that's a lot of HP. Double kill, here comes Shakal. They know they're winning this one, and now they're trying to get Galem, the jungler. That is going to be the ultimate price, as they're going to bring them down for the triple kill in favor of Skewer. Looking for the Quadra. It seems like Nugget will run away. No, he pops the Zonia. So it's about timing. Oh, he doesn't get the timing. He doesn't get the second one. Oi, oi, oi. Nugget now wants to fight it off. Oh, the sustain is way too big. And Skewer running away with the red buff. It seems like they're going to just handshake themselves and say, okay, we got this. Only 4 died. No dragon for anyone, but this could have been way cleaner in favor of our, MRG.
Definitely so. Big blunder at the very end of that. Skewer played that team fight really, really well. Couldn't quite clean up Nugget at the very end. Mistimed the Zhonya's. Then kind of just dashed back after the fact as well. Unfortunate for him. Let's see if we end up getting a bit of a reset there. I wasn't really too fond of how Harbo used that package either. I definitely understand that Shield Bow trying to get the best use of it, perhaps dive forward, dive back out as best as you can. But again, the damage wasn't really there from the Corki. Yes, he's not at that 2-iron mark yet, but even then, you'll definitely see a little more damage come out at this stage of the game. Shield Bow, it just takes so long to spike. And once it does spike, it'll be great. But okay, engage topside.
It's another team fight, and yet again, Sejuani is going to cool down the emotions, allowing 10 Line Tom to just be on the back line, attacking. But it seems like Skewer is a menace, and you need to respect this one. World Ender is now ended as well. So the Aatrox is not as big of a menace as he was before. Another re-engage from Fastleg. While they're still trying to get the Dragon, they secured themselves the third one. Nugget goes in. It's a really good engage. And yet again, it seems like Guarp are going to get a few kills out of the Dragon. But it's not enough. It's stacking up, and the Dragons are just piling on. Nugget a little bit lonely. 1v3, that is a wish, and I don't think you can deal with it. Skewer will eventually be pushed out of this one as the Chompers are on the floor. And 10 Line Tom is going way too deep. Fred Spaghetti flashes away. I have a lot of question marks on this one.
You know, just came back from casting some pretty cool League of Legends. I'm happy that I'm I get to see Div 2 gameplay now. Let's go! I mean, yeah, Guarp. Just a bit overeager, you know? All have to flash. Tadline, Tom, Nugget, and Fred Spaghetti. That's 3 flashes. Just because they overstepped and wanted to try and pick onto Shakal. And that could definitely be a really big deal. We saw how much impact Skewer had, diving the back line, taking down some of the, diving frontliners as well. And the fact that now some of those key targets don't have flash is going to make his life a lot easier for the next couple of minutes. Shakal, same thing. Even Fastleg's been super aggressive on trying to get some of these dredge lines down. Even though his score sits 0-3-4, he's definitely had a lot of impact for his team. As Galem just evolved the spike cracks, so now that W is going to slow quite a bit, as it will also, of course, get the additional prongs on the side. Working towards that Chem Punk Chainsword. Very, very efficient item, of course. You've seen a lot more bruises in particular pick it up over the Death Stance. Just gives you a spike a little bit earlier, even in games like this, right? Pretty high value when you have so much healing on the side of Skewer. Mostly him, to be honest with you. Yes, Volibear can have a whole bunch, but it's very rare that you really get to see that part of the kit these days in those extended fights. See how much stronger Galem can get, but for now, actually just finish it up, so see how much he'll get done with it. But I'm looking towards Munster still. I feel like they're, in terms of the game state, they're doing just fine. They have a Jinx, Kraken Slayer, plus that Phantom Dancer. Corki, yes, with a slightly more, old school build, has that Manamune about to be stacked up. This is pretty damn good and a pretty damn okay game state for Munster.
Munster still comfortable. The Jinx now access with Kraken and the Phantom Dancer. But there you go. You have to put the questions on Harbu. Getting the Manamune, getting the Shield Bow is a little bit behind for what it could be. On the other side, Nugget is sitting on Mejai 16, Everfrost, cooldown boots, and looking for the Zhonya's. So not only is going to deal a lot of damage, but also is going to be really hard to kill. The Chainsword is already built by the Kazakhs, so heal is going to be effectively removed, or at least lowered down a little bit on those fights. But now we get to see the Corki on 2 items. Usually this is the time where we get to see Corki shining a little bit. And since you're isolated, you call the help from everybody as the Frozen gets some fast leg. One more shot, it's not enough. The TP comes in, and there you go. World Ender. It's yet again Skewered on the front line. You have to deal with him yet again. And everybody's just running for their lives from Guarp Gaming. They have to give up. It's way too powerful.
Yeah, Guarp overstepped there for that pick. They get a couple of resources out of Munster at the very least. Carl's Flash, ultimate from Skewer, but that's really low CD with the build that he has. Gore Drink Up, Black Cleaver. Guarp on the other side. Unready Blue, Ignite, a couple of ultimates which will be up back in time for this 4th dragon of the game. But now Rebellious actually forced the flash, and now could see a bit of a collapse here.
No Glacial present, which means Kha'Zix is just going to flash in, but he's not isolated, but the Guard Trinket is going to give him sustain. Volibear goes 1v4, takes one down, almost takes two. Skewer is way too late to this one. It seems with 2 members down for your jungler, you may think we can take something, but you can't. There's nothing.
Nothing's up, nothing's available.
Fight for fight.
Fight for fight, yeah, basically. And I will give credit to Shkal for turning that one around to making it a 1-for-1. I feel like a lot more junglers would have just ulted away. But he says, you know what, I'm going to die if I ult over the wall anyway. I might as well try and turn some of this damage around, and finds himself a kill. Really nice stuff, but goes back to base, picks up a stopwatch. Very crucial thing to actually track. Munster, 3 stopwatches on the top side. They are ready and prepared for this Cloud Dragon. And typically, I would actually flame Cloud Dragon. And if you were present for the LPL on Sunday in particular, where we had, I think it was throughout the entire day, like 6 or 7 Cloud Souls out of the 9 games that were there.
But it's not Clouds.
Yeah, it was, oh, it's Hex Dragon. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah,
Hex
you
Dragon,
got bamboozled.
I got bamboozled by the thing. So yeah, Hex Dragon, don't even have to talk about it. We know how strong this soul is. If Munster gets, it's definitely going to bridge the gap here as Engage comes in. Galen!
It's a perfect engage on the jungler. You have to remove him away. The package is going to deliver you into the middle of the fight, and the damage is still there even though you're an auto attack. Corki, he tries to get the missiles. They're just not true to the site as a curtain call, but no one is taking the damage. And the one that takes Shakal, and meanwhile on the backline, the one with the Magi's is going to lose half the pages of the book. And Fast Flag is way too fast with that flash as here comes Jinx with the red buff. The Zep almost gets the slow down, but it's just not enough, and there you go. The soul belongs to Munster Rugby Gaming, and this is so important for them.
Yes, it is indeed, and you have to take, of course, a good, step back and scope of how exactly this is going to impact the standings, right? Actually, I think the scorelines are wrong. They're 6-8, not 5-8. So with a win here, either one of these teams, of course, I'm not going to count out Guarp just yet, but a win here for either team puts them up to 7. And whoever ends up losing the Unique Rising Dawn game is going to be looking over their shoulders. Munster, they're on this Baron. Galem is there. He's going to get a ward over the wall, perhaps a little bit of vision from the Void Rack. Doesn't look like he's going to have to hop in, but he's too late for it.
He's too late, and now they lose the Baron, they lose the Dragon as well. Fighting this is such a risky position. They don't have the Jhin. They're counting on the damage from the Sejuani. It works on the first one. On the second as well, something is happening. It's a double kill, and it seems Sejuani wants to extend the kingdom as Galem is going to get cut off in position, and that's way too much damage for you, my little one. Viggo Mobson now running away in defeat, ashamed of what happened, as Viggo Mobson wants to re-engage it again. One more hit. It's just not there. Yeah, 3 members with the Baron still alive, Jamada.
Yeah, I think a bit of a misstep there, though, from Munster, not really tracking the death timers. They definitely could have turned that around in the pit. Yes, Revelius and Fastleg didn't have flash, but you can stay in there. Give them help. It's just Galem on the flank. You don't have to deal with that Jhin for a really long time. 10, 15 seconds almost, I think they still had left to try and fight that one out. A little bit unlucky not to be tracking that one. Maybe they just thought they were a lot closer than they were, but Guarp definitely in a pretty good position right now to maybe look and hold on to this game off the back of taking away a couple of those Barons. Kind of strips away some of that time, which, if Munster were able to walk with all 5 Barons, immediately return back to the map, it could have looked pretty dangerous. But for now, I think they're going to lose a lot less because of that. And that could bring us actually to an Elder. That's why I speak so positively of the game state for them. Of course, they are in a pretty big hole. Let's not
you
get
like
that.
ping pong? Because we're getting it. So,
yeah, let's not understate how big of a hole they are in, realistically. Yeah. But I think the fact that they didn't lose a lot more, because Munster would have been able to reset off the back of that fight, immediately come back to the map. It's a pretty big deal. They still lose this mid-tier 2. Bottom side tier 1 as well is falling, and it seems like they're just going to have to give up this tower on the bottom side. To Nor, they trade it with an objective bounty on the top side, so, gold back and forth, but still Munster favored 100%, and that should give Revelius his Infinity Edge. On the opposite side, Tan Line Tom actually picked up the Lord Dominic switch. Kind of don't blame him for trying to get through some of that front line. Very difficult. But it means he's not going to have that Infinity Edge spike. Definitely not before that Elder Dragon in 3 minutes time. Now, Munster have 40 seconds left on the Baron. They're going to try and pick up at the very least that tier 1. So it's a very efficient Baron. But when you have that Hex Soul, it's very, very hard for Guarp to contest all of the natural stats that you have.
Essence River completed on Corki. So in the team fight, if he stays alive for a little bit, I would like to see that damage. I really want to see how he's going to dish out that damage as it believes that they're going for it. Oh, Glacial Prison goes way too wide. Galeb is shot down in 1 second. The curtain calls for fast lagged and he's going to go down. So support for jungler. This is not the best because of the line. Here comes Skewer. Here comes the volley, but as well Shakal on the hunt. Two beefy targets looking for Viggo Mobson, allowing Hardwood to get those attacks we were talking about. It is no longer a poke Corki. This is an 80 carry Corki with AP damage built in. And all of a sudden, the entire team disappears as Fred Spaghetti is going to get slowly cooked. Chef's kiss. Okay, that's a lot of damage.
There's a fair amount of damage. Sheen proc will crit. Like, this is the thing. It's not going to deal damage. It's Corki. He could build quite literally anything short of tank and deal damage. That's kind of how the champion functions. But definitely a very odd build path that we don't get to see too frequently these days. Now, a little over 90 seconds away from this Elder Dragon. I think Munster are just going to set up for it in front of that Mega Objective and just try and have Guarp force into them. They have to, right? Guarp can't just let this one go to a flip. Because chances are Munster, which Carl's won every single flip so far this game. Like, he's definitely been on point. As you can see, thank you, Reed. I was actually going to ask for this, just reading my mind. Take a look at the vision. It's just really one-sided, and Munster are going to have all the information at their hands to work with if they don't get a lot of deep setup. Still knowing that Guarp have to push into them can be a big deal.
They lost the front line, Jamara, in 1 second.
God,
it seems like they're going to lose the AD carry. There's no flash available. Gale Force is on cooldown, and his body is now resting on the base, watching his team get completely annihilated as Munster Rugby Gaming are looking to close this one up. They have the minions walking through the mid lane. It seems the turret won't hold against this team that is looking for the playoffs. This is going to leave Guarp a little bit far behind, just as Nugget is running away from the enemy. Munster Rugby Gaming now transformed into a monster in the first game of match day 15 to seal the deal, to get yet another victory, to get yet another staircase towards playoffs. And it seems like Guarp are now running behind.
Be falling behind in the standings at the very least. Again, remember, Guarp's strength of schedule is very much favored for them to make it into playoffs, but they still have to win those games. Dropping this game to Munster is definitely going to feel very bad given, you know, their run of form recently.
Face to face,
but
yeah.
for Munster, a huge, huge victory. Going up to 7 and 8. Of course, this is the second place from Spring Munster as an organization. It's not the same roster, of course, but as an organization, when you talk about expectations for them, this is the second place Munster from Spring. This is the Munster that was first place throughout practically the entirety of the regular split. I think they finished first place in the regular split, actually.
They did.
You know, we're talking about them trying to fight to make it into playoffs. It's still definitely a pretty big fall from grace, but picking up this win here against Guarp to, you know, knock them down to size, and not only that, this gives them the 2-0 head-to-head over Guarp. So this kind of, in a pseudo way, does eliminate Guarp from, you know, Munster's minds of, okay, we have to look over our shoulder. If we end up tied with them, we're going to end up losing. No, Munster now have the head-to-head, and that's a very, very big deal. And then it's just kind of be about how things fall in place with the rest of the standings, right? Rate, Rising Dawn, Unique, Domino, all 8 and 6 still. They have to play each other in a lot of these games. Everything's still on the table.
Everything is still on the table as we move on to the interviews to understand what happened in this game or what could happen throughout the rest of the days on the summer split. So we'll take a quick break and we will be right back with you. See ya.